Good evening. Hello, everyone who are tuning in to my YouTube station, Smita Sharma, journalist. And it's the situation in Bangladesh that continues to make the news and the headlines, not just in India, but globally, remains a huge, huge focus and obviously of great strategic interest to us as the immediate neighbors with traditional ties. Now, what we do know is, of course, Mr. Mohammad Yunus, who is a Nobel laureate known for his exemplary work in microfinance, who has taken oath as the chief advisor in charge of an interim government. It's a very interesting sort of cabinet that has been put together. It also includes two 26-year-old student representatives who were leading these student protests that we saw lead to the ouster of Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and she was also forced to exit the country. To talk about the current situation as of now, what really is the road ahead, what kind of future for Bangladesh do these students, who call this the monsoon movement, do they aspire for? And also, of course, from an Indian perspective or from a global perspective, that entire concern around the kind of violence that has been unleashed targeting minorities and Hindus in particular. I'm joined by somebody who has worked on counterterrorism for long, Mr. Shafqat Munir. He is with the Bangladesh Institute of Peace and Security Studies. Shafqat, many thanks for joining me here in this conversation.
Good evening, Smita. It's lovely to be here.
If I could start with, how is the day after the swearing in? What kind of Dhaka did you wake up to?
We woke up to a Dhaka which was still coming to terms with the revolution. As you rightly mentioned, it is being termed as the monsoon revolution. That's what we are calling it. Or in Bangla, the Borsha Biplab. I just returned from outside and I saw a very different city from the one that we are normally used to. Because right now, students are controlling traffic. They're managing traffic, they're clearing the trash, they're clearing the debris from all the violence. There's a lot of euphoria still in the air, and it was quite heartening to see young students perform these civic duties. And I think people are just basically watching how the new government takes shape and how they pursue the agenda.
Okay. Munir, just stay with me for a second. Yes, I do understand that people are, in fact, now tuning into this conversation. And for those of you who are tuning in, feel free to put in your questions here on the chat box, and I will be happy to include them in this conversation with Munir. Munir, also while we are seeing these images of young people trying to clear up the traffic signal. As young as I was just seeing reports being tweeted by a New York Times correspondent who's on the ground that a child who looks perhaps 10 or 12 years old, he is trying to essentially, monitor the traffic out there. And there is obviously a lot of euphoria around these two young student representatives being a part of this cabinet, where the majority portfolios are with Mr. Yunus right now. Take us through what kind of immediate challenges do you see for this interim government and the kind of expectations of people right now?
The first challenge for this interim government is basically to restore order, for them to create a stable situation so that anarchy, arson, violence is avoided. And I think that would be the challenge that they would have to face over the first 15, 20 days or over a month. Then there is a serious call for justice, justice for those who died during the movement, during the revolution. There is a serious call to bring people to book for all the killings, all the mayhem, all the enforced disappearances, all the wrong arrests, and so on. But if you ask me in the short to medium term, what is the topmost agenda? I would say economy, economy, economy. The Bangladeshi economy is at a very difficult juncture right now, and we have had a lot of disruptions to industrial production over the last 1 month because of the movement and the revolution. So the time is now to put things back on track. Another important priority for this new government is to introduce what I would term this new Bangladesh, the post-Hasina Bangladesh, to the world. Our new foreign minister, Mr. Tawhid Hussain, has already issued a statement, and I'm sure there will be more statements coming in the next few days. But yeah, I would say these are the top priorities. But at the immediate term, the priority is to restore order, establish the writ of the government, and make sure that no violence happens anywhere.
Who's going to restore the order, Munir? Because we also believe that a lot of stations were basically abandoned by policemen who were seen as aligning with the Awami League, or maybe, who were targeted too. So a lot of the police stations too are abandoned, and I don't know exactly how is the army reigning in the violence. It's not just about Dhaka, where the images do seem to be more stable. Yeah. It's about really the other areas, whether it's Khulna, whether it's Sylhet, whether it's Chittagong. So who is really trying to bring in a sense of law and order on the ground at this point?
At this point of time, the army is out there. I'm sincerely hoping the new Inspector General of Police has assured people that police will be out very soon, or sort of reclaiming their posts and stations. The Ansar, which is a paramilitary organization, but which has a nationwide network and deployment, they're also out. So it's a concerted effort. I'm sure the army will also be there for a while. So it's the combined security forces who will be out there. But of course, an urgent need for us is to bring the police out into the streets and ensure that crime, violence, arson, and as I have stated in other interviews, a very important priority for us is avoidance of any kind of communal attacks or violence.
I'll just come to that issue because I do know the viewers have interest. There are already questions coming into the chat box on that, but I just want to take a moment here to introspect what really went wrong, Shafqat. The Bangladesh economy story is something that was being spoken about globally. We were talking about the social indices improving, some of them comparable or perhaps better to even the larger neighbor like India. We were talking about the garment industry and so much of manufacturing hubs taking place. What went wrong for the economy to have come to the point of these students agitating? It started off with the issue of quotas, but really was about large-scale unemployment and disappointment too.
Well, Smita, you see, I mean, we also bought in a bit too much, and I blame all of us in this, Bangladeshis and also our friends abroad, into this whole myth of sort of less democracy, more development. Bangladesh is shining. It's an economic miracle. Of course, some of the economic indices are really impressive. And as a Bangladeshi, it makes me immensely proud. But we completely ignored the unemployment, the underemployment, the lack of social income inequality, the rising income equality, lack of social equity, the rising issues in society of abuse of power, of absolutely wanton corruption. We completely ignored the whole issue of enforced disappearances and arrests, detention without warrant. And most importantly, we ignored the whole specter of fear. This is a population which was living in fear, which couldn't vote for 3 consecutive elections. These are young people who have never had a chance to have their vote count, even in a mayoral election. So the point is all of these issues combined together. And let's remember, Bangladesh is a country of 175 plus million people. When you suppress a population of 175 plus million people, when it creates a pressure cooker environment, and the pressure cooker exploded, and look what we had. But the thing is, it is a lesson, not just from Bangladesh, but for the whole region, that we cannot ignore these facts.
So you're saying Bangladesh oversold its great economic Bangladesh shining star?
The Bangladesh government under Sheikh Hasina, in order to hide its democratic deficit, oversold the economic miracle. Yes, they did.
Okay. Now, there are lots of questions being asked about, while these started off as students' movements, is this really a student movement now? Did it remain a students' movement over the past few days in the run-up to Sheikh Hasina's fall? What started off with genuine, perhaps, student movement? We saw a lot of the, what is defined as the radical Islamist forces come in, whether, and a lot of factions that have had past histories of violence. So whether it's the Jamaat-e-Islami, whether it's Shibir, how much of it was really spontaneous? It remained spontaneous till the end.
I think it largely remains spontaneous to the end. Let me say this. It is essentially a students' movement, a people's movement. First, the students came out, then the mothers came out, then the professional groups came out, then children came out, then journalists came out. But yes, other political groups have also joined the movement at different points, and definitely all the demands coalesced into one demand, the ouster of the government and the resignation of Sheikh Hasina. It would probably have not reached this point so quickly had Sheikh Hasina's regime not used the level of brutal force that it did. We are still trying to determine how many people died. We still don't have full figures. More horrific details are emerging of how people were killed. But
what is your estimation? I mean, some reports suggest as many as 500 people dead.
I mean, I cannot speculate on figures, but I have seen government and non-government accounts of deaths of nearly 300. I have seen UNICEF statements saying 38 children were killed. There are stories of children being shot in the eye and lots of other horrific details, which I don't want to go into. But that really escalated the movement. And if you look at the chronology of the movement, Smita, there was a bit of a lull for a few days after the huge amount of death and violence. But when curfew was relaxed, when the movement sort of quietened down for a bit, and that's when we had cordon search operations by the security forces, where people were being taken away from their homes at the middle of the night. So the movement ignited again. And we are now seeing statements in New York Times and other places of what transpired on the final day. And there is enough evidence to suggest that there was at least a willingness on the part of the Awami League regime to use more brutal force, but the security forces said enough is enough.
Yeah, the army apparently said that we are not going to shoot and we will, be there, but we're not going to be taking action. Let me just bring in some audience questions here. I see my chat box buzzing. To start with, I have a question from Sajid Raza, and I think this is on top of the mind of people right now. Shafqat, we have to go back to this topic. What about the minority people in Bangladesh? Please explain.
My heart absolutely ached at the stories of violence against our brothers and sisters from different faith communities, particularly in this question, the Hindu community. There have been some very unfortunate incidents, but I'm also very happy to say that there have been also marvelous examples of communal harmony as well, where we have people guarding temples, madrasa students guarding temples. I know that in India, there is a lot of justifiable angst about what is happening to be very specific, the Hindu community in Bangladesh. But let me assure you, as I have said in other interviews as well, it is incumbent upon every Bangladeshi, including our government and the people of Bangladesh, to ensure that this incidents of communal violence are stopped forthwith.
Because the entire discussion here is just so vertically split and polarized right now. There are a whole bunch of people who feel that there is a large section that is going to the extent of doing public relations at this point in time, trying to show that some people are guarding madrasas. We don't know whether it's beyond Dhaka or not, or it's only in the capital.
It is definitely beyond Dhaka.
Horrific images also of young women getting kidnapped, what we are seeing as young women perhaps getting kidnapped, getting raped, and a lot of the forums putting out messages and appeals of what we believe are Hindus and minorities in Bangladesh asking for help. So where does the truth lie in this entire sort of discussion that is playing out through social media and amplified right now?
Sure. Truth lies somewhere in the middle. Is there violence? Yes. But is there violence at the level, the way it is being portrayed? No. What we also need to understand that a revolution has just taken place. An interim government just formed last night, and this afternoon portfolios were allocated. We now have a Home Minister for Home Affairs or Advisor for Home Affairs. So I fervently believe that the authorities have full intention to bring everything under control within the next couple of days. And
In fact,
there
that's
is,
a question that Siddhant Kumar also wanted to ask of when can we
Hmm.
expect things to normalize?
I am fervently hopeful, inshallah, that in the next 48 hours, things should definitely stabilize. The law enforcement and security presence is also increasing. So there is a genuine effort, both by the government and by the society, to control the situation.
Shafqat, there's also a whole amount of conspiracy theory that is, being flamed again through social media, largely amplified. One section that believes that the CIA is behind the toppling of the government there. There are people who believe that it's Pakistan and China playing their games. Somebody called AK wants to ask, shall we consider now Bangladesh is now vulnerable to be in the grip of big power politics? And Pascal D'Souza is asking whether Bangladesh is moving towards China like any other country, our neighbors.
Bangladesh is not moving towards China or any country. I want to assure you, this new government has already signaled that they want to have a balanced foreign policy, and that is what they're going to maintain. We have a very capable foreign minister who's just taken office. He has had a long stint working on Indo-Bangladesh relations, including a substantial stint as Deputy High Commissioner in Kolkata. He understands the dynamics of Indo-Bangladesh relations. He has written a book on it. So I'm sure restoring ties with India or revitalizing our ties with India would be his top priority. We are not moving towards China. We are not moving. I mean, I would like to assure the audience that I'm really cognizant of all the anxiety in India right now, but we are not going to be a country, as some commentators are saying, inimical to India's interests. No, we will pursue a productive, constructive, meaningful relationship with India.
And I'll talk about that bilateral relationship in just about a bit. We also know that the Indian High Commissioner Pranay Verma, was in attendance at that swearing-in ceremony of Mr. Mohammad Yunus, that has been confirmed by the Ministry of External Affairs. One of the points that is being raised by people, and I'm seeing this tweet by a prominent senior editor who says that the inclusion of AKM Khalid Hussain should be worrisome because he's the former Naib-e-Amir of pro-Caliphate Hifazat-e-Islam. My apologies. So, he being included, that there are signs that this will be a sort of a radical formation. Somebody wants to ask that will Bangladesh work on the same model as Pakistan is working, or will it continue to be on a secular path?
I don't want to equate Bangladesh with any country. All of you, I'm sure, are aware about Bangladesh's history. This was a secular revolution. Allow me to share an anecdote. There are pictures on social media of a large crowd of students singing a very famous Bangla patriotic song. I'm sure some of our listeners would understand Bangla. It says Dhono Dhanno Pushpa Bhara Amader ei Bosundhara by D.L. Roy, Dijendra Lal Roy. In Bengali, us Bengalis, we are all proud Bengalis. Us Bengalis, we call it Dijendra Giti, like Nazrul Giti or Rabindra Sangit. If it was not a secular revolution, if there was an Islamist touch to this revolution, ladies and gentlemen, why would people so spontaneously break out singing Dhono Dhanno Pushpa Bhara? Please let me assure you that this is a secular revolution. There are political elements in Bangladesh society who have a more pronounced religion-based politics agenda. That's a reality. That is there in every country. But please don't make assumptions that Bangladesh is becoming radical or Bangladesh is going to be the next Pakistan. This is very unhelpful commentary. What we need right now is our friends, our brothers and sisters in India to stand with us as we chart a course for this post-Hasina, post-monsoon revolution order. And I want to assure you that there are very sensible people in place running this country who understand that what are some of the challenges, what are some of the concerns across the border, and those will be definitely addressed.
Having said that, because Latif Qureshi is asking, has democracy been restored or is it indirect military control? What steps are being taken by the interim PM? What is the mandate of the cabinet looking like? Also, the inclusion of these two young student representatives. Symbolically, it looks nice. Do you think they also come in with some sort of a mandate? Will they really be able to represent? Do you have an idea of what are the priorities for the youth at this point in time in Bangladesh?
The mandate for this government, Smita, is to pursue a reform agenda, to basically repair, reform, overhaul the Bangladeshi state.
It's a political, economic, and social reform.
Yes, yes. And the idea, the mandate is still being shaped. I won't be able to give you a very clear answer because this government is barely 24 hours old. The students will have a huge voice that has been made amply clear by the inclusion of the two ministers from the student movement. The idea would be to carry out the reform agenda, stabilize the country, and pave the way for free, fair, credible, and meaningful elections at the earliest opportunity. I do not want to speculate how long this government will last. I don't think the government itself has been able to clearly articulate that. We need to give the government some time. They are working in concert with the major political parties. And it is also quite erroneous to call it an army-controlled government or anything like that. There has been a revolution. It's a post-revolution government. The military is trying to help this interim government stabilize the country. But it is not a military takeover. It is an interim government of civil society, of technocrats, of students, of minority groups who are helping to put this country back on the track and to heal the trauma. Because I think we need to keep in mind that there's a lot of trauma after what happened.
Yes, indeed. But, Shafqat, can the future of a country be built on the edifice of destruction? I mean, all said and done, Sheikh Hasina's criticism justified, her becoming authoritarian, muzzling voices. But the way people came out on the streets and desecrated the memories of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founding father, Bangabandhu's house, which was witness to that brutal assassination, that being burnt down in Dhanmondi, the Indian Cultural Center being burnt down. You cannot wish away the history of Bangladesh. These will remain the legacy of Bangladesh.
Absolutely. And I would want to be very categorical that violence cannot be condoned. Arson cannot be condoned. Attacks cannot be condoned. People taking their law into their own hands cannot be condoned. And that is the message the government is also saying. But Smita, the reality is revolutions by nature are chaotic. Revolutions by nature see some unfortunate destruction. I am not for a moment condoning any of the incidents that happened. I condemn them as well. And I think trying to destroy things which are a part of our heritage is very unfortunate. Attack on the Indian Cultural Center is absolutely and utterly condemnable. But the reality is that we also have to look at what happened over the past nearly 16 years. We also have to look at and do some soul searching and ask why these people are so angry. I think those questions also need to be answered.
Why? Why do you think did the anger boil down on the founding father himself?
The anger boiled down on the founding father because they were lashing out at his daughter in the party. They were lashing out at basically what Sheikh Hasina had done in the last few years. If Sheikh Hasina had realized that the mandate should go back to the people, she had a fantastic opportunity in January this year of holding free and fair elections. She didn't do that. So we also have to look at that. I want to categorically condemn all the violence, all the destruction, especially all the destruction related to our history and heritage. Absolutely. But we also have to look at the other facts as well.
I can see a whole bunch of comments coming in about Bangladesh. Can it be a new reason of concern after failure of intelligence agencies of India, security perspective, and the fact that Sheikh Hasina, since she took that flight out of Dhaka, she was forced to take that and came into Delhi. I mean, she's still, of course, in the national capital region. We don't know what's happening with her transit to a third country and how long, short will the asylum be. Obviously, India has made it clear that she sought asylum here, so India cannot abandon her at this stage. But is it leading to more anti-India angst in Bangladesh at the moment that Sheikh Hasina continues to be in India?
I will not sort of wish away this possibility. If Sheikh Hasina continues to stay in India, it might create some more anxiety. Some students have already talked about the need for extradition, but we haven't seen any statement from the interim government. But yes, it will create some anger and anxiety in Bangladesh.
Because her son, who is, of course, in the United States at the moment, he has been giving a spate of interviews to Indian television channels where he has claimed that Sheikh Hasina has not, unlike, contrary to all the reports, she has not sought asylum so far in UK, in Finland, in another country. And, there's no decision yet whether India will continue to be a place of asylum for her. But also indicating that she is still perhaps contemplating going back to Bangladesh at some point.
The possibility of that would be extremely slim. I think she and her party would do well to look at the current situation in Bangladesh, look at the level of public anger we just talked about, and do some soul searching themselves. We have to look at the facts on the ground. And there is now sufficient number of reports available to suggest that the public anger against Sheikh Hasina, the individual, Sheikh Hasina, the person, had become so significant that she basically had to flee from the country with her sister. So I don't think those ground realities have changed overnight. So there is a need for both the Sheikh Hasina and her family and the Awami League as a party to do a bit of soul searching and try to understand what happened.
But Shafqat, moving forward, as and when elections are held, I mean, it doesn't look possible that it will be held within 3 months or 6 months, perhaps. Last time around, you had an interim government. It took almost 2 years. Do you see Bangladesh returning from the Awami League era to once again maybe the BNP era? I mean, Khalida Zia comes out of house arrest. She has made the right noises so far, saying that, of course, violence needs to stop. But there's also that deep-rooted suspicion that New Delhi has of Khalida Zia, and they've never been on good terms and good relations. So A, do you see a return once again swaying in from an Awami League to a BNP era? And B, with the BNP, if it comes to power, there are talks about her son Tariq also perhaps possibly coming in and continuing with the leadership now. How does that impact the bilateral relations moving forward?
Smita, the bilateral relations have to be kept on an even keel. I mean, this is a task for the interim government. And as you rightly said, right now, none of us know when elections will be held. Because you also need to pave the ground for elections. You need to put the country back on the track and then look at elections. There's a lot of preparatory work that needs to be done, voter roll, reforming the election commission, etc., so on. Let me tell you one thing. Our geopolitics, our geography, our geoeconomic realities dictate one thing. You cannot have bad relations with a neighbor with whom you have over 4,000 kilometers of borders. We need to move away from this commentary in both countries that only Sheikh Hasina can keep Indo-Bangladesh relations fine, and the rest of Bangladesh do not like India. That is absolutely not true. Yes, under Sheikh Hasina's government, some major developments have taken place. But under a new government whom the people choose to elect, or with the interim government, similar new developments will take place. I understand the angst because a regime has collapsed after 16 years. So policy and decision makers in New Delhi are wondering, what do we do now? Who do we work with? I want to assure you that there are still a lot of reasonable, rational, sensible voices in Bangladesh who believe in the importance, the significance, and the vitality of Indo-Bangladesh relations. We need to give the new governments of Bangladesh that chance, the interim government and the post-election government, whoever that may be, to stabilize the country and to pursue a productive relationship.
Because one of the highlights that we did see in the past few years was really a lot of focus on that infrastructure building, was really a lot of focus on building connectivity projects, whether it be, freight, whether it be train, whether it be border sort of trading. So do you think that has suffered a setback for now, that it will take some time to come back on track?
I mean, it will take some time for both the governments to build the trust and confidence. Of course, it's a new government. But I think as far as connectivity, as far as economic ties are concerned, people on both sides see the value. And as I said, the new interim government would want to pursue a productive, constructive relationship with India and pursue the best relationship that is in the national interest of our country.
There's a question from Ifat Uruj, who is asking the weakening of governance structures in Bangladesh contributing to a rise in instances where citizens are taking law into their own hands. What does it indicate about governance at the moment?
I don't think we should look at it as a governance issue right now. It's a law and order issue. Again, I want to say that we must give this government time. They don't have a magic wand that they will wave and everything will be fine in 24 hours. We must give this government time to stabilize, to put the country back on track, and improve on the governance deficit that is also there. Absolutely. But I mean, we have to be a bit patient here because they have a Herculean task ahead of them. It will take them a little bit of time. But ensuring the avoidance of violence, ensuring that order is restored is absolutely topmost on their mind right now, from the chief advisor and below.
One final question to our viewers here. Shafqat explained the significance of Mr. Mohammad Yunus leading this caretaker government, but also the fact that, he's had a sort of a very personal rivalry against Sheikh Hasina. There were cases slapped against him. He leveraged his international position to have global leaders, including a Barack Obama, call out against those charges that were slapped against him. Is there an assurance that the future of this Bangladesh politics will not be constructed on vengeful, revengeful politics? That, this will not just be about witch hunting anymore, but you will have perhaps a healthier construct when it comes to building the country's politics.
You just articulated what is the hope of all Bangladeshis from this monsoon revolution. We want to move away from destructive, vengeful politics, of which, unfortunately, Professor Mohammad Yunus was also a victim. If there was an atom of legal merit in his cases, the court couldn't have quashed it so quickly. Those cases were essentially aimed at persecuting Professor Yunus and to pursue Sheikh Hasina's personal vendetta against him. So please, let us be very clear, he was the victim there. He is a global icon. He has created a microcredit concept which is not only lauded in India and Bangladesh, but lauded the world over. He was just feted in the Paris Olympics, where he was giving some concepts of his, like the 3-0 concept on which the Paris Olympics is based. He's a global icon. He's a Nobel Peace Laureate. He is somebody who wants to work with the youth. He wants to play an important role. And even as an octogenarian, he has taken on this role so that as a uniter of this nation, he can end the divisiveness, he can end the vengeful politics, and he can chart a constructive agenda for Bangladesh and pave the way for free, fair, and credible elections. At this point of time, he needs my support, our support, and the support of the global community as he tries to create this new Bangladesh after the monsoon revolution. We need to give him the chance. We need to give him that opportunity.
Okay, I think that's a good note to end this conversation on. Of course, Bangladesh will take time to stabilize. As Shafqat Munir said, patience will be needed in all quarters. But here's a sincere hope that A, the lives that have been lost of Bangladeshi citizens, that they get justice. It's difficult because
Absolutely.
Right now, all the institutions seem to have crumbled down, weakened down. I don't know how and in what form can justice be delivered at what stage. B, as neighbors, of course, India and Bangladesh have to be respectful of each other. It has to be a relationship of equals, of mutual trust. But trust has received a huge setback. It will take time to build, depending on what really is the final formation of the political structures within Bangladesh and, what kind of appeals and leverages are pulled. As somebody here in the chat box says, hope so, Bangladesh will not forget the contribution of India. Equally, I think India also needs to ensure that its neighbors don't feel like India is adopting a big brother attitude, because this has become a common grouse in the subcontinent now increasingly. And see, it is of immense importance that if this is to be seen as a genuine students, people's-led movement, its foundation cannot be on bloodshed, on violence, on targeting minorities, on targeting Hindus. That sort of a radicalism, that sort of a violence needs to stop immediately at whatever cost. So thank you so much to all the audiences who tuned in with your questions and with your thoughts, and Shafqat, Munir for joining us here from Dhaka. We hope to continue with this conversation in the days ahead.
Thank you so much, Smita. Pleasure to be here.